A little girl with long flowing black hair was skipping through the woods. She wore a lovely flowy skirt adorned with all sorts of colorful flowers that swayed with each step she took. Above her, the sky was filled with stars, their light filtering down through the tall trees and creating dancing patterns on the forest floor. As she skipped along, completely immersed in her own little world, she didn't notice the massive monster that had been watching her from behind a tree. The creature was big and chubby with thick, stubby arms and legs. Its large purple body was covered in a thick layer of moss that made it look like a walking patch of overgrown jungle. But what truly made it stand out were its bright orange horns, which spiraled upwards like those of a majestic stag. Despite its imposing size, the monster wasn't trying to scare her. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It had been following her for some time now, its big, round eyes shining with admiration and a goofy smile plastered on its face. As the girl continued her merry skipping, the monster couldn't help but let out an occasional snort, which sounded like a miniature elephant trumpet. Each time it did, the ground trembled slightly, causing the little girl to stumble and giggle uncontrollably. The monster loved this sound. It reminded him of nothing more than a tiny bell chiming in the breeze, and it sent his heart, if it had one, into a frenzy of excitement. He wanted to get closer to her, to be a part of her joy, but he was too shy. Every time he tried to approach her, he would panic and freeze up, his massive form turning to stone with awkwardness. He longed to introduce himself, to tell her how beautiful she was, but the words just wouldn't come out. His throat would close up, and all he could do was watch as she skipped away into the distance. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the forest came to a halt. The birds stopped singing, the wind died down, and the only sound that could be heard was a gentle lapping of a nearby stream. The little girl stopped skipping and turned around. She had a question in her voice as she looked towards the direction of the sound. "Who's there?" she called out. A moment of silence hung in the air before a low rumble broke the quiet. It was a monster, and it was trying to speak, but his voice was hoarse from disuse. Hello," he stammered, stepping out from behind the tree. The little girl gasped when she saw him. Her eyes widened in surprise and her mouth formed a perfect O. The monster's heart sank. Had he scared her away? Was his grand entrance ruined? He looked down at his feet, ashamed. But then something unexpected happened. The little girl didn't run away. Instead, she knelt down and placed her hands on the ground, her floral skirt pulling around her like a colorful halo. The monster blinked in surprise. He had half expected her to scream and bolt, not sit calmly and observe him. "Hello," he repeated, this time a little louder. He smiled awkwardly, hoping it wouldn't frighten her. To his relief, she didn't flinch. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice as sweet as honey. The monster hesitated. He had never had anyone ask him his name before, let alone someone as beautiful and ethereal as this girl. My name," he began, his voice cracking. He struggled to remember. It had been so long since he had to introduce himself that he couldn't recall his own name. The little girl giggled, and the sound was like music to his ears. It encouraged him, spurred him on to continue. "I haven't had anyone ask me my name in such a long time," he said softly. It's Barkley," he finally blurted out. He closed his eyes, waiting for her reaction. Would she laugh? Would she run? Would she make fun of him? But instead, he felt something wet and cold on his hand. He opened his eyes to see that the little girl was shaking his hand. "It's nice to meet you, Barkley," she said, her smile as bright as the stars above. The monster blushed, or at least he thought he did. It was hard to tell under all the moss and dirt covering his body. He wanted to shake her hand back, but he was afraid he might hurt her accidentally with his large, clumsy paws. So he simply nodded, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. The girl stood up and brushed off her skirt. "Are you going somewhere, Barkley?" she asked, tilting her head to the side. Barkley hesitated. He wasn't sure how to respond. Should he lie and say yes, that he was going somewhere important, that he didn't have time to waste? Or should he tell her the truth, that he was lost, that he had been wandering these woods for weeks without purpose or direction? Before he could decide, the girl took a step closer to him. She reached up and gently stroked his arm. Her touch was as light as a feather, yet it sent shivers down his spine. "You seem sad," she said softly. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Barkley looked into her eyes, and for a moment he forgot everything else around him. He was lost in the depths of her gaze, and it was the most terrifying and exhilarating feeling he had ever experienced. I don't mean to intrude," he stammered, quickly pulling his arm away. I don't know where I'm going. I've been following you because you seemed happy and I wanted to be where you were." The girl smiled understandingly. "Well, if you don't mind me asking, why are you here, Barkley? Why did you come to this forest?" Barkley shrugged, unsure how to answer. He didn't know why he had come here. He had just felt drawn to the woods, as if something was calling to him from within. The girl sat down on a nearby log and patted the space beside her. "Tell me about yourself, Barkley," she said softly. And so Barkley sat down beside her and told her everything. He told her about his life in the monster world, about his friends and family, about his hopes and dreams. And as he spoke, he felt a weight lifting from his chest. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he could breathe. And then, as if on cue, the sky erupted into a brilliant display of fireworks. Every color imaginable was on display, and the forest echoed with cheers and applause. Barkley and the girl watched in awe as the fireworks painted the night sky. Suddenly, Barkley felt a surge of confidence. He stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath and turned to the girl. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "for listening to me, for being kind to me, for being you." The girl blushed. "Oh, it was my pleasure, Barkley," she replied, her eyes sparkling with mirth. "I've never met a monster before, let alone one as handsome as you." Barkley laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the forest around them. He felt like he could stay here forever, talking to her, being himself, being loved for who he was. And then, as quickly as it had started, the fireworks ended. The forest was silent once more. Barkley felt a pang of sadness. He knew it was time for him to go, to return to his world. But he also knew that he would never forget this night, the night he met the most beautiful girl in the world. As Barkley prepared to leave, the girl reached out and handed him a small pouch. "Here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Take this with you. It will remind you of our night together, Barkley hesitated, unsure what to say. He took the pouch and clutched it to his chest. I don't know how to thank you, he stammered. You've given me more than I could ever hope to repay. The girl smiled. Just promise me you'll be happy, Barkley. Promise me you'll find your place in the world. Barkley looked into her eyes and made his promise. Then, with a final wave, he turned and disappeared into the darkness. Barkley ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding in his chest. Behind him, he heard the sound of her laughter echoing through the trees, and it spurred him on. He didn't know where he was going, but he didn't care. All that mattered was that he had found a friend, a true friend who accepted him for who he was. As he ran, Barkley felt a sense of purpose fill him. He knew that he wasn't just a big, ugly monster. He was Barkley, the monster who could make people laugh, the monster who could be a friend. And as he embraced his uniqueness, he realized that he was truly free.